Okay, this is the last video in our series of videos for 6B, and we're going to be shifting gears a little bit to talk about arc length right now, guys. In the diagram that you see here in circle P, we're told that PR, which is our radius, is 15. And so if the radius is 15, then we can use our circumference equals 2 pi r formula to get that our circumference is 30 pi. Hopefully you can remember that from the last video, how to do that. And so if we go ahead and we use the formula, remember the formula from our vocabulary is that the arc measure, this is in degrees, out of 360 can be set up as a proportion with the actual arc length, and I'm going to put this in red because this is what we're actually finding in this example, so it'll be easier to see what we need to do to solve for it, is always going to be divided by the circumference. Okay, so the 360 is always the number in the denominator. The arc measure and the circumference are going to be placed in depending on the problem. So let's see what those are for this time. Arc measure, I hope you can see here as we're finding the length of, and that should actually say an arc symbol over the top there of arc QR. So we're finding the length. In other words, if we were to cut off this part of the circumference and stretch it out straight, how long would it be? So that's what we're asked here. The measure of that arc, as you can see, we know is the same as the central angle measure, which is 120. So our first fraction on the left-hand side of the proportion is 120 out of 360 is going to equal the length, which we need to find, and then divided by the circumference, which we talked about before we set up our formula here. Now what I would suggest to you guys very seriously is that you take this left-hand fraction and you do everything in your power to reduce it before you move forward, because it's just going to help you have much smaller numbers to deal with. So we know that the zeros can cancel out. It's a factor of 10 in each one. And then we just have 12 over 36, and I hope you can see that that's going to reduce to 1/3 for that side. So that's going to seriously help our cross multiplying, because 1 up here times 30 down here is going to give me an easy 30 pi. Don't forget to leave pi in your calculations until the very end. And then that's just going to equal 3 times the length that you need to solve for. So clearly we're going to divide to get rid of the 3. And so my length is actually just going to be equal to 10 pi if we reduce that fraction there. So we were asked to find the length, and notice we have a squiggle equals here. So we're going to use our pi key and get an approximation, and we get 31.42 units. So if we continue that process, a little bit of a different problem, different setup here. This one is not in your book, but same exact thing that we're being asked to do. This time we have that AC is 9, so I'm going to go ahead and draw that in on the diagram. And that is given to us as our diameter is 9. So if I use circumference equals pi d and plug in what we know, our circumference is going to be easily 9 pi. So now let's set up our proportion. If we know that the measure of angle ABD, as we do right here, is 40 degrees, that's this angle ABD, so we can put that onto the diagram. Then that tells you if we're finding the length of this little piece of the circle, if we were to straighten it out, arc AD, and again I'll put that arc symbol over the top here. When we are finding the arc measure there, that's the same as the central angle. So it's going to be 40 out of the total 360 is going to be proportional to the length that we're trying to find, which is the unknown always in these types of problems that you're going to see, divided by the circumference that we found already. Again, reduce. We know our 10s are going to cancel out there. And then I hope you can see 4 into 36 is reducing down to 1/9. Quick cross multiplication, we get 9 pi equals 9 times the length. And so if we divide by 9, hopefully you can see that my length is just going to be 1 pi, or pi. And of course we just passed Pi Day last week, so the length of arc AD is actually 3.14. How about that? So from here, like in the last video, make sure that you travel to those yellow pages in your WISC, because those are going to be the ones that I'll be looking at tomorrow to check in on your understanding on the on your own problems. Good luck to you, and I'll see you tomorrow.